They tell you to find meaning. But first, they sell you survival. Before you can ask who you are asked how you will pay. Before you can consider purpose, you are informed of rent. Food costs money. Shelter costs money. Time costs money. And money demands participation. This is not choice. This is coercion with paperwork. They call it freedom. But freedom that disappears the moment you stop producing is not freedom. It is conditional tolerance. You are allowed to exist as long as you are useful. Vanitas begins here, not in despair, not in philosophy, but in the quiet realization that your life was never oriented toward meaning, only toward maintenance. You are born into a system that immediately assigns you debt, not moral debt, not existential debt, financial debt. You owe before you understand what owing means. And so your first education is not wisdom. It is obedience. They tell you to dream, but only within parameters. Dreams that generate revenue are encouraged. Dreams that don't are called impractical. Curiosity becomes inefficiency. Stillness becomes laziness. Reflection becomes wasted time. Every hour must justify itself. Even rest must be productive. Vanitas is what happens when life is reduced to throughput, when existence becomes a transaction, when being alive is no longer enough to deserve food. Capitalism does not merely organize labor. It colonizes meaning. It takes the question, what is worth doing, and answers it with, what pays? And slowly, subtly, everything else is deprioritized. They don't force you with chains. They force you with consequences. Miss rent, lose shelter, miss work, lose food, opt out, disappear. So you comply, not because you believe, but because hunger is persuasive. They call it a rat race. But that language is dishonest. Rats are not told they are free. Rats are not blamed for failing. Rats are not asked to be grateful. You are told, work hard and you'll be fulfilled. So you work, you exhaust yourself. You trade years of your life for numbers on a screen. And one day, you pause and you feel it. The hollowness, not because you failed, but because you succeeded at something that was never designed to satisfy you. Vanitas is the aftertaste of compliance, the dryness that remains after chasing every approved goal. They tell you to build a career, not a life. A career, something modular, something replaceable, something that can be quantified. Your value becomes legible only through output. If it cannot be measured, it does not exist. Love becomes secondary. Health becomes negotiable. Time becomes collateral. Friendship becomes scheduling friction. Art becomes content. Thought becomes branding. They say, do what you love. But they never mean it. They mean, find something tolerable, and monetize it before someone else does. Passion is allowed only after profitability. Vanitas is not boredom. It is the realization that your deepest energies have been consumed by something that does not love you back. You are told this is normal, that everyone feels this way, that the emptiness is a personal failure. Burnout is individualized. Dissatisfaction is pathologized. If you feel hollow, you need therapy. If you feel trapped, you need motivation. The system is never questioned, only your resilience. They do not ask whether the structure is broken. They ask why you are not adapting faster. Vanitas appears when you realize that even success does not free you, because the moment you have enough to survive, you now have enough to lose. So you protect it, you cling, you self-censor, you comply even harder. Security becomes a leash. You are praised for endurance, not for truth, not for wisdom, not for clarity, for endurance, for how much misery you can metabolize quietly. They call this adulthood. Vanitas is the exhaustion of pretending this is all there is, of waking up every day to trade irreplaceable time for replaceable currency. And still they say, be grateful. At least you have a job. At least you're not starving. At least you're not homeless. As if survival were generosity. As if dignity were optional. The cruelty is subtle. You are allowed pleasure, but only after productivity. You are allowed rest, but only when exhausted. You are allowed joy, but only if it does not interfere. Vanitas reveals the lie. At the center of modern life, that endless pursuit can substitute for meaning. It can't. It never could. Money is not evil. Work is not evil. Effort is not evil. But mistaking them for purpose is. Vanitas is what you feel when you realize you are never chasing meaning. You are chasing permission to exist, and no amount of money can satisfy that hunger, because the hunger was never material. It was existential. The system demands everything and offers nothing but continuation. More goals, more milestones, more consumption, no arrival, only maintenance. Vanitas does not say, give up. It says, see clearly. See that all worldly pursuits, status, wealth, prestige, optimization, are empty. When treated as ends, they are tools, not truths. The tragedy is not that life is short. The tragedy is that it is spent, proving worth to something incapable of recognizing it. Vanitas strips the illusion away, and what remains is terrifying and freeing. You realize you were never broken. You were exhausted by a system that profits from your confusion. And once you see that, you stop asking the world to give you meaning. You stop begging structures to love you. Vanitas is not despair. It is refusal. Refusal to pretend that survival equals purpose. Refusal to confuse motion with direction. Refusal to kneel to a system that can only measure what it consumes. And in that refusal, something quiet begins. Not hope, not optimism, but truth. And truth, unlike money, does not ask permission to exist.